Welcome everybody to Project You, Project Me, the FTG guide to self-belief and self-coaching. Why not come along and listen to people like you, people like me, leaving legacies for your future? Hello and welcome to the Forces Transition Group episode 26 of Project You, Project Me, removing the fear for all those who are going through the transition. And what we tried to do is speak to lots of people who have left or leaving the military so that we get lots of different pathways and ideas of what it's like to leave and best practice. And today we've got a good friend of mine in Barry Rizza, served in the Royal Signals for many years, but I'm not going to take away any of his story. I'm going to let him tell it. But before we start, Barry, what we really do is we learn a little bit about the individual first. So, things about where you grew up, what you did when you were younger. So tell me a little bit about your kind of life before you joined the military.
So I grew up in Inverness, so quite a scenic place, always outdoors, was very sporty, was quite good in primary school, but lost a bit of interest in secondary school. I used to go to things like Boys Brigade. I played street league football. I then played for an Inverness select, and then I was picked up by Caledonian Thistle. So I sort of came through the academy system. So my dreams were always to be a footballer,
Mhm.
um, and I pretty much gave everything towards that.
Yeah, well, I think when you went through your career, you pretty much became that in the military for a large period of time. But no, we'll go through all of that soon. So, Inverness, did you ever see Nessie? Did you ever kind of catch a glimpse of the Loch Ness monster?
I never caught a glimpse, no, but not until I went to England, and I think I now married her, but that's another story.
Yeah, we'll probably take that bit out of the session in case Nicola listens to the podcast. But so you were going to be a footballer, you want to be a pro footballer, all that kind of stuff, and certainly were good enough. But what made you join the military then? After that kind of younger years.
It was pretty much had nowhere else to go, so like I said, in secondary school, I lost interest, so I didn't get the grades. My head was still on becoming a footballer. When I left school, I went to college for a year and did sport. I absolutely loved it. Every day I was doing different sports.
Yeah.
I loved it. Um, I just didn't see it going anywhere, especially in Inverness.
Mhm.
And I think with myself growing up in Inverness, I was going out, starting to go out drinking. I was starting to get a bit of a name for myself, getting in a bit of bother. And it's such a small place, and I just didn't see a future in Inverness. And two of my mates, when I was 16, two of my mates dragged me along to a selection weekend for the Royal Marines. They just asked me the day before, we're doing this, do you fancy coming along to it? I never forget it. It was an amazing weekend. I loved it. But it was probably the hardest physical weekend that I've ever done. You can imagine me at 16, I was absolutely tiny. I never forget the weekend because it was the weekend Princess Diana died. Um, so I went through the selection process, loved it, got to the Sunday, and I remember being dragged into a room and they said, "Sorry, we made a mistake. You don't meet the height or weight requirements." And
Wow.
I was like, "Wow, thanks very much for telling me that at the end of the process." Um, but I got a lot from it, and from that sort of laid the seed that it was something that I wanted to do going forward.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting that you also mentioned the you weren't really going anywhere. I think in a different podcast, we've described how the military need to really go back to that scenario, and we really need to start going back into the areas where that happens. Things like Newcastle, Sunderland, Scotland, Liverpool, the places where the military's always took a high amount of people from who actually want to do something with their life, but actually really don't have the opportunity to do it where they are. That's really gone now. Those careers offers, those chances to go and meet people who are actually in the military and some people you would maybe look up to. So there's definitely something in that to bring that back. And I think the military is trying to do that. Whether they pull it off, I'm not so sure. But it kind of leads us nicely into the next area, in which one of the problems with the armed forces is how long it takes to actually get in now. And we're seeing and being reported on that some people are taking between 12 to 18 months before they even get anywhere near joining. And there's all kinds of problems with their health and things that go missing at the GPs and stuff like that. But how quickly did you get in from basically, signing up or going into the careers office or however you did it to actually starting in basic training?
But mine, once again, so when I did eventually go to join the army to get a trade, so my mum steered me away from the Marines. She was like, I'm not letting you go in unless you get a trade. You need to get a trade, which in hindsight was great advice. Mums always know best.
Mm.
But when I went in again, I was deferred for nearly a year because again, they had height or weight restrictions at the time. I know they were abolished, they were took away,
Yeah.
but I was deferred for it was 6 months to a year, so I had to go away. And I was put on like a special diet to try and gain weight, which some people might think that's very easy, but it was so hard. I was chucking protein down my neck. I was going to the gym. At that time of year, at that age, my metabolism and my genetics, there was no way I was going to put weight on. I weighed like 51 kilograms.
Mm.
So I had to wait till that was took away, and then the process after that was then quite quick. I would say within 3 to 4 months, I was in basic training.
Yeah.
It's definitely, and I see this when we go into the job that I do for the army now. We can go into it a bit further, but I see this all the time now that good people are getting turned away for silly medical reasons.
Yeah. Well, if you look at that, and after 20 odd years service for yourself, reaching the top, you nearly got turned away.
Yeah.
And that length of time in 12 months, 6 months, your dynamic can change that quickly. If something else had happened in your life, if you'd have got a good job or you'd have got married or something like that happened in your life, you would never have joined the military. Thus, you would have lost another great person. And how many people is that happening to? It is an interesting conversation and needs to change. But we've spoke quite a bit about sport. So sport certainly changed my life when I joined the military, and was really a lot to do with why I stayed. But tell me a bit more about sport within the military from you, because very, very early you got into football, and kind of where did that go for you?
Yeah, so I call it my second chance. So when we talk about I wanted to be a professional footballer, in some ways, some people would say I pretty much had that life.
Mhm.
At the same time, I had to strike the balance if I wanted to get on in the army. But my best memories, 100%, come. My best friends, my best memories, best times in the army come through sport. So I was picked up straight away at army level. I went to army youth, and then the army senior team were a few people short. So within 6 months out of training, I was asked to go to Brazil with the army senior team. And as you can imagine, some of the best memories of my life. But I was lucky enough to go back to Brazil 2 other times.
Mm.
I went to Mauritius, Finland, New Zealand. Used to go to Cyprus or Gibraltar for pre-seasons or end of season tours. I went to America, in Washington. The opportunities for sport are endless. I remember I remember being in Brazil at a training camp. We were sharing a training facility with the England team,
Mm.
because they were over there for the World Cup at the time. I remember Rooney coming over and speaking to us, asking us what we'd got up to that night. Because obviously they've got a strict regime. We were over there having a good time. I'm playing football. And I remember thinking, I remember watching Wayne Rooney, who was looking at us and listening with real intent, because he can't go out and enjoy himself without getting photographed
Yeah.
and stuff. So in a way, we sort of had a better life where we could go out and do it without fear of stories coming out against us.
Mm.
So some great times.
Yeah. I remember playing against the Brazilian forces. That was some game. I don't think I touched the ball in that game because they were way I wouldn't say they were fitter and better at football. They were just more technical. I can't remember what the score was, probably 1-1 or something like that. But you put yourself down with your football thing. You actually captained the army, didn't you?
I was captain for, I'm not sure now, maybe 4 or 5 seasons.
Wow.
3, 4 seasons, I'm not sure to be honest. Captain under Joey Collins when he was the manager. So
Mm.
it was a great honor to be asked because Joey was one of my idols. He was captain. So to be asked by someone like that, it was a great honor.
Yeah, yeah. And again, just to reiterate, it was the best times of my life playing football, not just with the military, but with you as well. And it kind of ties in nicely with the next question, really, which is all about you having a connection because you've kind of left the military now, if you like, but you're still working within the military and you've got a connection in there with sport, which is a really nice connection. What you're talking about now and how we can get more people to join and retention and recruitment and all this kind of stuff. So, what is that you're doing now?
So I work on a project which Lee Fraser and myself designed called Steps. So Steps program is an acronym which is it stands for sport, trade, experiences, personal development, and then second chance
Yeah.
or sporting success. So when near the end of my playing career, I became the Royal Signals, the core football manager, and we were experiencing a lot of our players leaving for various reasons. So I looked at it and thought we need to go out and try and recruit some footballers. So off the back of that, myself and Lee Fraser went to a couple of sporting academies and delivered our presentation.
Mhm.
And from there, we sort of built it up. And then when we were leaving the army, regional command decided to employ us as part-time as sport engagement officers.
Awesome, yeah.
So we're basically going into the academies as they're getting the news because, as you know, less than probably 1% of these are going to be full-time footballers.
Mm.
So we're going in, we're laying the seed, we're talking to them about, listen, you've had a setback now. I'm not saying now's the right time to join the army, but maybe go off, give it another go, drop down a level, maybe get a second chance. But if not, down the line, have you thought about the army? Do you understand the all the different trades, etc.? Because when we speak to these kids, they all they think about the army is shooting a weapon, what they see on the TV, stuff like that. They don't understand all the different trades.
Yeah.
So we go into that and break it down.
Yeah, that's really important. That's where you're going to get them to, to, I suppose, want to join the why we wanted to join. I didn't join because of money or anything like that. I joined because I wanted a better life and I was told it was going to be fantastic. But I think social media now has taken over that. So you see the fighter jet or people playing with monkeys in the Gibraltar Rock. And actually that's not really how it is. It's a different life to that. So we've got to explain that to them. And you can only really do that face to face. So what you're doing is fantastic, and I've got no doubt many people have joined the military since you've been doing your talks, and then people are fit. You've got to be fit to be a professional footballer, and usually switched on and things like that. So these are the kind of people the military want. So
So the way we're saying it to them as well is you're 95% there because to make yourself a good soldier in the initial stages, you've got to turn up on time, look smart, and have some values and standards.
mm,
Now, these have come through an academy system where these academies know that less than 1% of these kids are going to make it. So a lot of their job's about making the kids better people. So going back to that, if they don't turn up on time, they're not going to get a game on the weekend.
Mm.
If they're not wearing what they're meant to be, they're going to not get a game. So it's showing them that what they've been taught is transferable into the military already. So they're not, and you would have seen that when you go on your leadership courses and that. It's a lot of the time the good sports people that are leaders on the football pitch that used to transition onto their leadership cadres and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which, so that's kind of a part-time thing. So you've left the military, but you're still within the military, if you like, which is all great. But you've now got a job, which is kind of the transition that we've come here to talk about today. So people who are transitioning can hear your story, and see how you're doing it and how you're feeling, that kind of stuff. But the transition into civilian street, what is the job you're doing now?
So the job I do now is I work as a coach and mentor within a college, and I work with FE kids for their education. So kids come to me they'll get referred to me. It can be anything. They could be behind with assignments. They could have confidence issues, anxiety, maybe going through a bit of depression. It could be absolutely anything, and they get referred to me, and that could be one-to-one or small groups up to 5 students,
Mm.
and I work with them. It might even be where they're just struggling with motivation, or they're a bit lethargic, or they can't get themselves into routines, and I'll just work with them and hopefully try and get them in a better place.
Yeah. And what qualifications did you have for that?
Enough. At the time, I didn't have anything specific, so they I seen on LinkedIn the college was looking for a sport tutor, and I reached out to the college. I rang them and I said, I don't have the qualifications that are you're looking for this actual tutor role, but I'd really be interested in working in the college. I think that I've got stuff to offer the kids. So they asked me in for a conversation, and I remember going in, sitting down with one of the assistant um, one of the senior leadership team and somebody under her. And I was sat there for about 2 hours, and they were just asking me it was really casual. They were asking me questions. What roles had I done in the army, um, and stuff. And from the back of that meeting, they pretty much wouldn't let me leave until they found a job for me,
Mm.
which was it was a weight off my shoulders. I felt really valued, and we went from there. Now, initially, the job that I do is government funded off the back of COVID, so it's called a tuition fund. So they seen trends that kids were coming out the other end of COVID, like ourselves, were struggling.
Mm.
So they created this government funded role. So I was employed on an initial 6 month contract. And I think I've been here nearly 3 years now.
Yeah.
But my contract is up in the summer, and I think they're saying that the government aren't going to extend it anymore. So once again, I'll be in the transition and looking for a new job role.
Mm.
However, in that 3 years, I've had some amazing experiences with the college.
Yeah, you've been to Africa and all kinds of places, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've been in Malta with a football team. I just come back about a month ago from Saint Lucia, and the main one was Africa, where I just feel it had a real sense of purpose, and I came back. It changed the kids' lives, and not only that, it gave me a sense of purpose, and it probably changed the way I look at things as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of things I've picked up on there is, first of all, you networked well. So it goes to show that having a bit of brand and being able to network and actually just going and speaking to people works, because clearly, that's where it came from. But secondly, the job that you went into, although you say you had no qualification, um, your qualification was actually a military career. How have you started to use, or how were you using some of that military training, then the military qualification, if you like, that you were doing in the military, because you clearly made it. How are you using those skills to teach those kids, and how do you see them looking at you if you were kind of to swap the mindset round and put yourself in their position?
I think I think so. I always start off building a bit of rapport with the kids, and I think straight away they have 95% of them have that respect for how long you've served your country, and you tend to see a lot of them thanking you for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in terms of skills, so in terms of qualifications, sorry, I had all my leadership management level six and stuff
Yeah.
through the army. But then a lot of the stuff that I think I work with and teach them are lessons I've learned through sport also.
Okay.
So being the captain of the army team, some of the experiences, and then the level of job as a warrant officer, I was dealing with young soldiers. There's no different to dealing with a young soldier coming to me with a problem than dealing with these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then the transferable skills, the communication skills, leadership. When I look back at leadership, I always go back to values based. Now, I say this when I go to football academies as well. So week one in the army, your top values and standards, your C drills, your courage, discipline, respect, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment. And I always refer back to that in anything that I do. I call it going back to my values-based leadership. Any decision I make, whether with my kids, with family, I mean, I always refer back to that. That's my moral compass. That's what keeps me on the right path most of the time.
Yeah. Well, of course, if you're laying that out to youngsters as well, a lot of them are going to hear that. And when you're young, that's when you're given your values. So, of course, you then saying, well, this is what I've done all my life and look where I got to. And they'll look up to that. So that they will start to use some of those values and probably actually want to join the military because of those values. Um, I think the values and standards that you learn in the military actually sticks. And if you can live those values, which is what you're talking about, actually sees you in a good place, everybody else can see it as well.
And that's the value of these trips abroad are absolutely key to this. So like when I get them, I might only get these kids for an hour a week to work with, but when you get these kids in an environment abroad,
Yes.
away from their home environment in a different environment, and you'll be absolutely amazed in how much these kids grow and develop in say 2 weeks,
Yeah.
because you can, when you're trying to install it on a day-to-day basis, like you're late for breakfast, you're late for a meeting, and you're just drilling it into them every day, and some of the kids at the end of it, and it makes the job really worthwhile. Some of the kids come up to you at the end of the 2 weeks abroad and say, My life's changed for the better. Thank you so much for the little lessons that you've tried to install. Hopefully when we get home we can carry these forward."
Mm. Well, of course, that if you transfer that into the military and get people into the military nice and quickly, the majority of youngsters will flourish. It's as simple as that. I was nothing special when I joined the military. I was small. I didn't know anything about the world. I was semi-fit, but I excelled as soon as I joined. And you'll probably tell me that I wasn't fit and all that kind of stuff, but probably never was. But it kind of brings us to this transitional piece, because we did mention it there, and there's a couple of questions I have on that. Um, because you've got a mix of still military, so kind of haven't left, but have, and you're doing a civilian job. How's your mindset with that? How do you feel? Have you left the military yet?
I think I think I've definitely left the military. So people always ask you to miss the military, and I don't miss the green side of the army in any way. Um, but I do miss parts of the military. But what I like, to be honest here, when I left the army, it was during lockdown. So for a year, my last year, I was pretty much working from home from a laptop.
Mm,
So I was thrown straight into lockdown. Now I've been with my wife for 20 years
mm,
and never lived with her. So I was thrown straight into lockdown. She was working from home. She's got a high pressure job. The kids were in the house. I'll be honest, yeah, I went into, as you know, as being one of my good mates, I went into some dark places
mm,
and really struggled. But I don't miss the army. I just miss the routine. I miss the sense of achievement. I miss the doing SEALs, a hard SEALs PT session where you finish and you think, wow, I've accomplished something there. But I'm now at the stage where I try and set challenges. So
yeah,
I do that within the college. So I had the college students doing the Goggins challenge last year. I've got staff doing the Three Peaks challenge this year. Um, and just I find myself getting bored quite easily. So I'll set challenges for myself. Last year, like I did a 12-week weight cut just to challenge myself. Uh, I've done like 72-hour fasts where I eat or drink nothing but water for I just get bored and I need to challenge myself. But again, with these challenges, I need to be careful because I enjoy the challenge, but when I achieve it, I feel a bit. There's always there's always a down and
mm,
going back to my sport days in the army, I always enjoyed the training, the competition, but when I won something, I never really enjoyed winning. It was always what's next. So I need to be careful with that because I know myself now that I've quite an addictive personality and traits where I give everything 100%, but then once I achieve it, what's next?
mm. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. But clearly you're doing well now, so you've come out of that. Some of that will have been to do with COVID as well, and trying to kind of move through that transition and that transition through CTP, CTW. How did that go for you? Because clearly it was during the COVID time, so probably a difficult position for the military or for right management as it was then, or still is until October this year. But how did CTP work for you? How did you find it? Was it a help? Was it not?
I'll be completely honest, I didn't do it. So I remember going to one event in Tidworth. Um, I was sat in a classroom with an older gentleman. I'm not sure if he'd been in the army. I'm not sure how long been in the job, but he looked like he didn't want to be there. Um, and he didn't grab my attention in any way. So I remember sitting in the classroom for about an hour, and then I sucked it off, and I went back. I was working in Bulford as the RQMS at the time, and I thought this is a waste of time. So I just went back to work after an hour. They used to email me and invite me to things and try and get me back, and I did nothing. I didn't go to any other event. I didn't do any training. I didn't know what I wanted to go into, so I thought my mindset was I'm not going to go and do any courses when I'm not sure what I want to go into yet.
Mhm. So it kind of brings you to my theory, that we don't need to have loads and loads of jobs waiting for people when they leave. Yes, that's something that people need to go into. What we need to do is teach people how to leave. We need to give them an understanding what reality is, what the real world's like. We live in a very insular world in the military, as you know, and although we know what a college is or we know what Amazon is and we hear the name, we don't actually know what happens within those organizations. And until you do know what happens within those organizations, you're never ever going to understand where you want to be because you never know where you fit. So the current situation of adding more jobs to the system when Reed come in is probably going to complicate the future for me, because why are we given more jobs when we still don't understand how to leave? So it is interesting to hear what you're saying. And for those who are listening, and although I do know Barry and know Barry well, I haven't given him the questions or told him how to answer. This is all honesty and kind of mirrors what happened to me, because I didn't go through very much of it either, because I just didn't believe it. Now, lots of people like the last bit, so it's the 3 golden nuggets to leaving. Now, clearly you've been through a long career and you've left, and there's hundreds of different things that you could say to people, this is what you should do. But if you had 3 golden nuggets that you could give to somebody who was leaving now, and clearly that's going to be the audience in many ways, what would your 3 golden nuggets be?
I can't remember who said it to me in the army, but I always remember somebody saying to me, resettlement starts the day you join the army.
Okay.
And now when I look back at that, I think I think it's the wisest thing anyone's ever said to me. I just wish I listened to that bit of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I look back now, my family was at home, I was in the block. There's so much training courses
Yeah.
that I could have been doing over them 20 odd years that I never. Don't get me wrong, I left with qualifications. I did things that interested me, like me football badges, and stuff like that. But I could have done so much more. Could have educated myself more. I could have developed myself. Just personal development over that time. I wish I took that bit of advice, but that would be my number one. Number two is I think we've touched on it already, but networking. Now, I didn't have a clue about it. I wasn't on any social media platforms until I left the army, because I built my own gym. I started doing some personal training for my own gym. Now, networking, absolutely massive. If I wasn't on social platforms, I wouldn't be in the job I am now at the college. So, and I remember you all saying to build your network up, build it up, get yourself out there. It's the only way people get to know you. So that would be number two. And number three would be don't worry about setbacks. I mean, I applied for a job not that long ago because I know my contract's coming to the end of its time at the college, and I didn't get it. And I wasn't even sure that I wanted the job, but I remember the disappointment when I didn't get it. I was like, I felt so rejected. But then I go back to the stuff that I tell these kids that there's no such thing as failure. It's just, it's a chance to learn. So I went back to the people that didn't get the job and got some feedback off them. And the feedback was invaluable. They were really honest. They were really good with how they structured it. And I just think, I've been here before. I've had rejection before. I didn't make it as a footballer. I had rejection when I didn't get into the army. I had to go away, was deferred. Um, and I've probably been through transition 3 or 4 times in my life, really. When I didn't make it as a footballer, when I stopped playing football in the army, and when I left the army. So don't worry about setbacks. Everyone gets them. It's what you do going forward. Learn from them and crack on. So that would be my three. Resettlement starts the day, networking, and don't worry about setbacks because everyone has them.
Yeah, they're fantastic 3 golden nuggets there, for everybody to take away, and I'm sure they will. The last one that you mentioned there is very relevant, and we get a lot of that. People who reduce down in their levels, get very stressed, get very anxious, start to really fear what their future is going to be because of rejection. And ultimately, we don't see too much rejection through our lives, although we do see it on occasions. But when you're coming to transition, if you apply for 100 jobs, you're going to get a lot of rejection. It's just the way it is. But you're also going to get a lot of positives, and you're going to find your future. So, Barry, thank you so much for coming on and doing this show today. I have no doubt that many people will listen to this and take so much away from it, and you'll probably find that it will change somebody's life in some way or another who will kind of refocus and move forward positively. And I wish you all the luck in the world. And clearly, you know, we'll always catch up and things like that. But thanks very much for being here. It means a lot to me personally as well. And good luck for the future, my friend.
Thanks for having me, John. Hopefully, one person can take something from it, and keep up the work you're doing at FTG. I see it on LinkedIn all the time, and you really are changing people's lives, and giving it your heart and soul, just like you did with everything that you done when you were in the army. Absolute winner. Keep it up, pal.
Thanks very much, mate. Stay safe. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Project You, Project Me. Thanks for listening in. But remember, we have a Project You, Project Me guide to self-coaching, to self-belief, and it can all be downloaded on our website. We also do the 5 fundamentals: CVs, professional writing. We do brand, we do CPD, making sure you're going in the right direction. We're also looking at your elevation, giving you 2 times the chance to set up your interviews before your first actual interview. And also we look at your financial plan, massively important for your future, for you and your family. So why not come along? Have a look. What you got to lose? It's all free. Stay safe.